Hola, Wine Chisme familia. We've got some exciting news to share. The Wine Chisme now has a voicemail line. That's right, you can literally call us, leave your thoughts, questions, or even suggest topics you want us to dive into on future episodes. Whether you want to share how an episode resonated with you, or ask about previous wines we've featured, or even tell us about your own chisme, we want to hear your voice. Porque este podcast has always been about connection, and now we can make that connection even more real. So grab your phone and call us at 858-304-0266. Leave us a message, tell us your name, where you're calling from, and whatever's on your heart. Who knows? Your voice might be featured on an upcoming episode. Because at the end of the day, Wine and Chisme is about all of us coming together, sharing our stories, and celebrating our community. Now, be a part of the podcast in a whole new way. Again, that number is 858-304-0266. We want to hear from you. Yay! Welcome back to another episode of the Wine and Chisme Podcast. Today, I have Cyrstal Roman, the founder, CEO, head writer, and producer of the Black Latina Movement. How are you, Cyrstal?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. So excited.
Me too. I'm so excited because this is just like the having representation in media is so important, right? And
Definitely.
I love anytime that I get to talk about these things with others because who are in these spaces,
Yeah.
because it's really important. And sometimes I forget. I was telling you, we're both in media, and I sometimes forget, like, technically I'm in media, right?
Yes.
And then people are like, no, you have a platform. No, you're doing it. And I'm like, you're right. I mean, the name of
Yeah.
my company is even media. So
Yeah, it's true. Sometimes I think just because it comes second nature and then there's so many facets to media, you forget like you're a part of that community, but definitely.
yes. No, oh yeah. I think that's what it is totally. And I've always come from a comms world anyways.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm already familiar with it based on like all of the like pitches and people I've met and television
Mhm.
and movie, like all of these things. So it's just kind of funny. I've left everything, my windows open, my door open because it is warm and we don't have I live in San Diego and we don't have air
Oh, okay.
conditioning.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we have air conditioning in one room, which is the bedroom. So before we get to the chisme, we always start with the wine. I didn't ask if you were drinking anything today, but whether it's cafe, agua, whatever, agua fresca, whatever. What are you having today?
Well, I have water and ice today. That's just because it's just a sweltering hot in New York. But I do know you have a section about what we're drinking as far as like wine and stuff. So I've been on like a prosecco kick with, which is not wine, but it's kind of
It's a
but
sparkling
prosecco,
wine.
right, with a splash of vodka, which is like phenomenal.
Really? Oh my gosh, I've been seeing all of these things on social media in regards to like you put it like putting jalapenos in the
Yes.
prosecco and stuff like that. And I
Yes.
have not done
Yes.
that. And I'm like, ooh,
Yes.
I have some sparkling wine and I do
Yes.
have some jalapenos. So I'm like, I
It
have to
might,
try
yeah, it might,
this. Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
see how it is. So,
I love a good mezcal too, so it's like that, like smoky hot, like yeah, I
oh,
love
I
it.
love
So yeah,
mezcal. Like, it depends on the mezcal. Um, but yeah, I do. And especially like for if I'm having like a mixed drink, a tequila mixed drink. I actually prefer the mezcal because I like the smokiness
yes,
in a mixed
yes,
drink with that
yes,
versus
I love that.
tequila. Yeah,
Yeah, like that earthy, smoky. I love it, love it.
I agree. Well, I'm so in June, let me put my bottle here. In June, I was in Oregon for my second oldest nephew's graduation. And and so
Nice.
I made sure to visit a couple of Latina owned wine brands in the Willamette Valley. So today I am drinking a rosé. It is a rosé of Pinot Noir by
Nice.
Balanza Vineyard.
Ooh.
My mom actually came, my mom's not a wine drinker. She actually came with me. So she's only kind of seen me, quote unquote, in action a couple of times. One was when we
Uh-huh.
had the live event in Los Angeles, and my parents came, and my mom's like, Mija, all of these people are here for you? Like, yeah, mom. And she's just like blown away. And then I had her come with me because I just wanted to get her out of the house, but I had her come with me to Balanza Vineyards. And this is their 2024 Porch Swing Rosé of Pinot Noir.
I love
So,
that.
oh yeah. So it's, as you can see, it's super, super light.
Yeah.
Like,
It's like
you
rosé,
know,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's even a lighter rosé
Yeah.
because you have some darker ones, but yeah, it smells so good. But
That's it.
yes.
Is it sweet or like just like
No,
some?
no.
Okay.
It's been a while since I've tasted it. So let me taste it again and tell you.
Go
Salud,
for it.
first of all.
Go for it. Go for it. I love it.
Ah, it's so good. No, it's nice and crisp,
Yeah.
and it's not sweet. It's you taste it's like you taste a little bit of the strawberry, but not too heavy. So it's not dry, like where it just puckers your mouth or anything, but
Mhm.
it's like it's just a really good balance, and it's like perfect summer wine, right? Perfect
Yeah.
summer wine.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't chill it enough. And actually, when you chill it or when you let it go root, like all of those things, it actually changes the flavor of
The
the
flavor,
wine,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
you know?
Very true.
So, yeah. So I didn't get to chill it as much as I wanted. That's my fault, user error, because like I said earlier, I just really wanted to lay in bed. And then by the time everything else happened, I was,
Time
had to get
flies
ready.
so fast.
Yeah.
It flies so
Girl, let me
fast.
tell you, I was thinking today, I was thinking today that, oh man, I love my dogs. I'm a dog person all the way. Love my dogs. Grew up with dogs. Have two dogs now. But I was like, oh my gosh, I can't be really lazy because of my dogs, which is a good thing because it's definitely possibility that I probably wouldn't walk as much if I didn't have my dogs, right?
Yeah, they
I'm
keep
like,
you
they
on your
keep me,
feet.
yeah, literally.
I love that. Love it.
So I'm gonna read your bio and then we will get into the chisme.
Okay, got it.
Crystal Roman is the founder, CEO, head writer, and producer of the Black Latina Movement. The Black Latina Movement is a vibrant grassroots theater and film production company based in New York City. She started the movement after having been in the entertainment industry for 7 years and noticed that there weren't a lot of roles that showed the multi dynamics of women. Black Latina Movement was established in 2008 and provides a space for women and place for women that are multicultural, multiracial, and all the intersectionalities that most women of color represent, but don't receive that imagery in the media. It is a platform of entertainment that strives to break norms, ideologies, and stereotypes in the media. The media is so often comfortable with. You girl, like this is so true. So true. You've been featured in, is it Pix 11? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Pix 11,
Yeah.
Huffington Post, Telemundo, Latina Magazine, Arise TV, Madame Noir, and more. I am, let's just start at the beginning. Where did
Yeah.
I mean, like, you're from New York. Is that, I'm assuming that's where you grew up.
Yeah.
Tell me about growing up, not just growing up in New York, but the media you consumed growing up and how, like, and being, a Black Latina or Afro Latina, however you tell me you want to be addressed is how you will be addressed. Um, and not seeing a lot of that reflected back as a young girl.
New York is great. Like, New York is a melting pot. Like, we have so much here. We have so many cultures. There's so much diversity. So growing up, in the 80s, it was such a mixture of like the African American and the Latino community. Even if you weren't an Afro Latino, those two minorities are the biggest in the country across all the inner cities. So if you go to LA, you go to Miami, you go to Detroit, you're going to see these two groups of people. And so even if you're not an Afro-Latina, you get to see and hear our sounds, right? So you can hear Hector Lavoe, and then at the next sound, you're going to hear the Stylistics or the Four Tops or the Delphonics, or you'll hear Celia Cruz, or you'll hear, so you get to hear our music, you get to smell our food in a lot of these places. You can go down the block and you can have like chilaquiles in the morning, but then you can go get soul food, for lunch. And, that was just what New York represented for me, and what it felt like. Home was just a place that reminded us of where we came from, and being in New York. So it wasn't a place that I didn't feel like home, or I didn't have my home countries like in my backyard, right? And there's so much representation in that here. And then on TV, right? Like you see different shows and you see glimpses of yourself, but not quite what you look like. But you find love in some of these characters, or ideas of what, I wish I could be that girl. Or I wish, you look at some of these shows. I know growing up we had like Full House and like Family Matters and some of these cute little shows where you might not have seen a brown girl that looked like me, but you saw yourself in some of the characters, and so things like that. And so being in New York was great because I never felt like an other. I never felt like I didn't belong here. However, New York does have its own segregated kind of parts to it, or our own neighborhoods, right? So you have like Little Italy, you have Chinatown, you have Harlem, you have Spanish Harlem, you have these different places where are meccas to some of our people. And, so you can also feel the difference in some of the spaces. So like I grew up in Harlem and uptown Washington Heights, but then my mom moved, when my parents separated, to Staten Island, which was predominantly white and still is at the time. And so like there were moments there where I was like, oh, I'm different. I'm not, you walk into a classroom. When I went to school in Harlem, so first and third grade, you walk into a classroom, it's all of us. We all look the same. But when you go into a place where there is more other groups of people, it's like, oh, not everyone looks like me. So I'm walking into classrooms, and I remember in Staten Island, they had dress up for who you want to be day, right? Like in school, they used to do those things. And I would do them in school in, Harlem, and everyone knew the characters I was dressing up as. And I remember one time there was like one girl who she was like an astronaut. She was like Sally Ride, and another girl was like someone else. And I came in as Oprah. And they were like, and then another year I came in as Janet Jackson, and they were just like, and and I'm like,
Don't tell me they didn't know who you were.
I didn't know, but I think the way that we prioritize our heroes, right? Like when you think about people like Celia Cruz, or you think about some of our heroes in our communities, other people don't prioritize them or see them or as icons the way we do.
Yeah.
And so like they were picking people who, like just and there was nothing wrong with the people they were picking, but I think that is a key point about representation, and why representation is so important, because other people need to know that these people are important people in our communities, even if you're not a part of the same way that we know, white or other culture legends and icons, we're very well versed with them. They need to be well versed with our heroes too, right? And the people that are important to us. And so I think some of those things were off-putting, but those were also poignant moments in my life where I was like, oh, this is different. I'm different. The things that matter to me are different. Like, oh, or I would be in school eating like arroz con gandules, like leftovers, and people would be like, what are those little things in your plate? Like, I didn't even know what the word was for gandule, because I'm like, it's a gandule. Like, what are you talking about? And so I'm like, oh, it's a pigeon pea, like, but those are moments that when you're so, embodied in your culture, and you got cousins and friends and family, and you're really just in your own community, you don't think about how other communities or other people receive it. And so like those were moments growing up that were kind of like shadowing moments where in the end, these were part of the reasons why I created the movement.
Well, talk about foreshadowing that you came in as Oprah, like, like
Yeah, right.
foreshadowing on that,
Right.
right? I
Right.
think
Right.
when I was little, I wanted to be Gloria Stefan. I wanted the rhythm to come get me.
Yes, yes, yes. And how big is that, right? Like she had one of the biggest plays on Broadway in a space that is only, for like these really white, musicals that are classics like Phantom of the Opera and some of these really big that are beautiful, but they don't look and sound like us. So to have her even to be able to do that on Broadway, which is really just a closed off community, is amazing, right? But it just goes to show these are the things that we need in order to kind of empower our communities and for people to even enjoy them too. Like other people who are not Latinos love Gloria Estefan music. But it's just about getting that ball rolling.
Yeah. That was my mom's favorite like singer.
Mm-hmm.
She loved her and Carol. Well, my mom's still alive. It makes it sound like but growing up, my mom's favorites were Gloria Stefan and Carol King.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
whole, you know what I mean? Like,
She has a great play on Broadway too. Yeah.
and so that's like I kind of grew up with a little bit of everything. Like people look at my playlist and legit, I have um Motown. I love
Yeah.
Motown. I have Motown. I have a lot of R&B. Girl, but nothing hits like 90s R&B. I mean, what happened to the 90s
Yeah.
R&B?
I
I'm
know. It's
telling
not
you,
the
it's like I'm
same.
like it's not the
It's
same.
not the same. No. Agreed.
And then, so but it's so true. When did you feel like, because obviously media affects all of us, right?
Yeah.
It's the stories that are being told, the people that are telling the stories, how the stories are being told by which perspective and everything. When did you start noticing your love for media, for theater, for music, that you were just like, maybe you didn't think, oh, this is what I want to do ahead of time, but maybe like you would run home from school, or maybe there was something you were like, I have to see, it connects with me in some way.
Like growing up, my mom always had us into something. Like my sister was into dancing class, she was taking ballet. My brother was, into baseball. And so, like, we always were into some type of like entertainment. And then, you would do talent shows, dances, this and that. I think once I got older and I was out of high school, I kind of wanted to dig more into it, like as a hobby. And so I went to get some training, took some classes, had a coach, and then was like, yeah, let's see how this works. Like, I enjoy it. I've always enjoyed it as a kid, but now trying to take it into more of like a serious hobby. And so started to go on auditions and was like, I think I'm pretty good, right? And then I would get roles and, I would start being in different shows, or I would go on tour with a show, or I would start doing, short films, and they would get into festivals. And so once you start getting your feet wet and you start feeling good about it, it's like, it gets addicting because you're like, I want to do more. I want to see more. I want to do another role, or I love that. I want to. So then you really start like gravitating and like beating the pavement and going to auditions after auditions and trying to get an agent. And those things start to kind of transpire.
When I know when you're acting and when you're doing the auditions, and you have to have a very tough skin. But
Yeah.
when you start really young, it can be really hard to take all
Yeah.
of that rejection. So, like, who was that person? Was it your mom who would kind of give you those pep talks? Did you have like, what was that like being a kid and being like, you're not right because it's hard as a kid to hear you're not right.
Mhm.
Because you're like, so what do you mean? I love this. I want to do this.
You know, I gotta say, like my community of friends that I've had for so many years, I think because it wasn't something that my family could relate to in the sense of like they've never done it before. So it would just be like, oh, so sorry you didn't get the role. But it wasn't an experience that like they truly understood. And so,
Mm-hmm.
like, a lot of my fellow friends who are actors and actresses, or just people that I know that I could kind of say, like, oh, meet to this audition and like let me, or I would like do like play practice, right? We would run lines with each other. That was really the people that were I could gravitate toward because they got it in a way that like my family just wasn't gonna get it. They just weren't in that world. And
Right.
sometimes you don't have to be in the world to get it, but it just wasn't, they weren't getting it. So there were times that I would feel like, dang, like I know I killed that audition and like I didn't get the role and I didn't get the part. And there were things like that, and then there were things within that world that was happening as a Black woman, as a Latina, that I was like, oh, this feels really weird. I'm not liking the way this script is like written about us, or like some of these lines feel really stereotypical or like hypersexualized. And I would like share them with my other friends and I would say, girl, like, and they would say, I had a similar audition or a similar experience, like, but you know, whatever, like it pays the bills. So I'm not going to say anything. And it was in those moments where, like, in my little community, I was like, something needs to be different because this is feeling really weird. And when you love something so much, you don't want to let it go, but you kind of have to figure out how do you navigate this space now when there are problematic issues.
Were you ever told like you were too much or not enough? Because, being Afro Latina, being a Black Latina, like Gina Torres says, nobody ever saw her as Latina. They just saw her
Yes.
as a Black woman. So,
Yeah.
how would people see you?
People would see me as a Latina, but then when I would go into Latina auditions, if it was like there would be like a lot of heavy Spanish text, and I'm not that fluent in Spanish. So like the role would be great for me, but if I couldn't just deliver the text the way that they wanted to, it would be like, all right, sorry, like we want someone who's bilingual, or which was fine. I respected that. However, there were times that it was a Latina role that wasn't bilingual, but just the way that they were presenting her was problematic. So I remember there was one time that there was a producer who he wanted me for the role, and so we were kind of going through the role and he was just like, I need you to be like more Latina. And I was like, I'm not getting what he means by that. And at the time I'm like 22, 23. So you're young, you're impressionable. So I'm like, I don't understand. And he's like, like throw a couple of eye poppies in there. And I was like,
Uh,
what? And
Girl,
I
I'm Latina.
because
That's
it
not how I
didn't.
talk.
Right. And it wasn't, it just didn't make sense for the character in the role. Like, and you don't have to be an actor to understand that. Like, it just wasn't, the context wasn't making sense. Why would she just randomly be having a conversation and say, "Hi, Papi"? And it was like a way, I guess, of him of using like a nuance, like, certain Caribbean Latinos, when they're talking, they'll be like, oh, dique, or like Black women will say like allegedly, right? And I think he was trying to create that kind of nuance with it, but it just felt so flat because you didn't get it. Like, you're a
Mhm.
writer, but you're not a Latina writer,
Yeah.
right? And so these are the moments where I was like, I can write for my people because I know where an eye poppy may possibly fit if this is, but at the same
Yeah.
time too, it being authentic, right? Like, if that's not the character to say eye poppy, then the
Yeah.
character is not gonna say eye poppy just to
Well,
fit this
especially
Latina
like,
quota.
yeah, and especially in like, instead of saying, well, what would you say here? Just telling you what to say. Like, I say I all the time.
Right,
I. Like, that's, I,
right,
I don't need, I probably say that hundreds of times a day. I'm not,
right,
right? Like, oh my God, like it can be excited. It can
right,
be like frustration. It
right,
can be like worrisome. It could like that, and so that's mine,
right,
right? And a lot of people in our community, even outside, now I hear other people outside of our
right.
community saying, ay,
I,
ay, ay. And I'm like,
yeah,
okay, all right,
yeah,
cool, whatever.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But you're
yeah.
right. It has to be like true to the character. It has to also be true to you. So it must have been really frustrating, like getting that, having those people write a part for yourself or part right for our community that's maybe doesn't understand the the nuances within our community. But then also just saying act like a Latina. Well, where is this for? Like,
Right. What
I'm
does that
Latina, you're
mean?
Latina, but I'm from San Diego, you're from New York. Our experiences are super different. Right?
Correct.
I'm
Right.
Mexican American, Dominican, I'm assuming.
Puerto
or
Rican.
Puerto Rican. Yeah, I was like, it's gonna be one or the other,
Puerto
most
Rican and
likely.
Jamaican. Yeah.
I've gotten a lot of Dominican friends now from, you know, but yeah, so it's, even yes, a lot of Caribbean Latinos share, but there's still differences
Difference. Yeah. Yeah.
between that, right?
Right.
So just to have, even being that age, but just to know the difference, to be cognizant enough to know, like, this is
Yeah.
not
It
really what
just
it
was
should
like,
be.
yeah, because there are things, and you know that there are things in the broader community that we all say and do, right? That is not necessarily nuanced by region. It's just, Latinas. But then there are things that are nuanced depending to where we are, whether you're a South Central or Caribbean Latina. And so those things can change. And so I think, not to say only Latinos can write for Latinos, but there are certain things that need, they should have consultants. I think it's really
Right.
important on these shows. If you're not going to have Latino writers, you definitely need consultants, because depending on the context, again, it could be a broader Latino thing where all Latinos kind of do, right? But at the same time, if it's specific to a region and this character is Mexican, then we need to get Mexican nuances there that make sense, and all Latinos can appreciate it, but specifically to the Mexican community. And I think these were things that were starting to happen, that at like 22, 23, I was letting it slide for some time, but then I was starting to have certain issues of like, well, I'm not Black enough for some of the Black roles, but I'm not Latina enough. And so like, how do I navigate a space to feel comfortable in something that I love so passionately?
Wine break. Time to refill that glass and come back for more Wine and Chisme. Hola, Wine and Chisme familia. If you're loving this conversation, don't let it end here. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at The Wine and Chisme for behind the scenes moments, wine recommendations, and daily doses of chisme between episodes. And if you don't already know, we bring these conversations to YouTube as well. Subscribe to our channel so you can see the full experience, the laugh, the tears, the wine pours, and those moments when the chisme gets real. Plus, don't miss out on our bi-weekly Spill the Chisme newsletter. Get exclusive content, wine picks, and all the chisme delivered straight to your inbox. Head to thewineandchismepodcast.com to subscribe, or just DM me the newspaper emoji on Instagram and I'll hook you up. Your support helps us amplify more voices and share more stories that matter. Now, let's get back to this conversation because it's about to get even better. Last year, we had Julissa Bermudez on, who's also a fellow New Yorker, right? And she was sharing some of the frustrations because she does present as, like, people look at her and see a Black woman.
Yeah.
And she was very honest in regards to, like, really still wanting to bring her Latinidad to the forefront and saying, like, yes, I am an Afro-Latina, I'm a Black Latina, like, I'm not just one or the other, I'm both, and I'm fully both, because I feel like we do ourselves a disservice to say I'm half and half, right? Or I'm half this or I'm half that. No. And I understand from, like, a genetic standpoint, right?
Yeah.
But I was born in San Diego, but I was raised, I'm second gen, but I was raised to be very proud of my culture.
Mm-hmm.
But no matter where you're at, from other perspectives, you're never fully Mexican or you're never fully American. So you're right, but I'm fully both, right?
Yeah.
I am fully proud of who I am and where my family comes from and everything. And I think that's one thing that we have to kind of just say, no, you're not half. You are, because it's inside of you. You are, representing your community, and people aren't going to look at you and be like, are you half Mexican?
Right. Are you 74%?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Yeah.
Can I see your 23andMe, please, so I can
Yeah. I think, and I don't know, it's a weird way, I think, for people to kind of comprehend or put you in a box of, like, their own mind and how their brain works. Like, oh, well, she's 74% this. And so it doesn't matter, you know, even if you were to do a 23andMe, it's for what matters is what you genuinely feel inside from the cultures that you are and what you pull from. And I think that's really important. I know there's people who will like fake the funk and lie, and they'll try to be a part of a community that they're not. And I understand that we do need to gatekeep from certain people who are like trying to culturally appropriate our things. But when it comes to us, I think it's just really important for us to embrace who we are and where and the different places that we come from.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I remember back in the day when Jennifer Lopez got the role of Selena, and how many people were mad because she
Yeah.
wasn't Mexican, because she's not Mexican.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, her fat look, and there could be other issues with her family, but her family ultimately, they still loved her. And they're like, they're the ones who chose her. They're the ones who felt like she could bring, and people still love that movie. People
That
still
movie's
resonate with the
incredible.
movie.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
incredible.
And she did an incredible job in that movie. And I think now people have forgotten what the kerfuffle was, you know, then. But I remember because
Yeah, I do too.
I mean, I fully remember when that happened. But that still continues to happen now. So as a producer, as a writer, how do you feel about the representation within our community in regards to hiring a Puerto Rican for a Mexican role, or hiring a Mexican for a Dominican role? And how do you relay that to the community?
I think it's about the talent, right? Not to say you can't find enough Dominican talent to play a Dominican role and you pick the Puerto Rican. I don't think, I know that there's tons of talent within the Latino community. So I don't think that that's not the case. But sometimes I do think that it happens that way. And I think sometimes even like a writer or producer, they may have somebody in mind, kind of to your point with the Jennifer Lopez. I think the director kind of knew her already and she still had to audition, but he really liked her. I think, those are the times that sometimes we get too much into the weeds. And I feel like, I don't want to say just be happy, right? Like we also don't want whatever crumbs are thrown our way in our community. But I think a win for one is a win for all, right? Because we're getting closer to the place of having more of us at the table. So I know even in the African American community, like a lot of times there's a lot of debates on some of the actors, like British Black actors playing Black American roles. Like when we looked at the movie, was it Jesus and the Black Messiah? Daniel Kaluuya, who played Fred Hampton from the Black Panther movement, he's a British American. So they were like, well, they couldn't find enough Black American actors to play it. Why did they have? I think we get too much into the weeds with those things. I think it's important for us to just see the overall impact of like a Latina or a Black person playing this role of this prominent person, or even if it's not a prominent person, just playing this role. And again, not saying like just take it and shut up. If you can find a Dominican to play a Dominican role, go for it. If it's there and you can find them. But if you find a Mexican person that is phenomenal and falls into the line of what you have the character background be, I think that's okay too. I'm not that hard pressed. I think that we have bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way. I do sometimes, I'm not gonna lie, I have sometimes gotten frustrated where I'm like, I love the diaspora, I love all of the countries, but I'm like, it's all the Mexican roles always go to Puerto Ricans.
I get that.
And it's not that I don't love the representation, but sometimes it's a little frustrating. And I feel like sometimes as a community, we're like, well, it's not real. That's not my experience. Well, I'm sorry. Have you experienced aliens, but you still go watch the Marvel movies? I mean, like, what does it take? I feel like we're
Well, it was like with Zoe
never
Saldana.
happy.
Like I was kind of torn with that too, right? She won an award. Like I think that was the first time that a Latina had won an Oscar in that way. But it was a Mexican role. So the Mexican community was upset about the fact that like it's kind of like it's playing that. I struggle with it a lot sometimes too, because I'm like, dang, like, but at least we got it. And I know sometimes it's bad to be like, oh, but you're just taking the crumbs that's being fed our way. I think for me also, the other challenge is making sure that like we're finding ways to pay it forward, right? So like if Zoe is now in a position that she is at the table, is she becoming a producer and taking on the role of like creating more work for Latinos and pulling from the different places of diaspora, the amazing Mexican actors or Salvadorian actors or Cubans, or is she pulling from the different sources and different places and not just focusing on that? Because to me, that's also the next phase of things, like finding who the great talent is. I think Hollywood does this thing of like only picking people in that pool. And that's why you have the issue of like Puerto Ricans like taking over in that sense, because Puerto Ricans have only been highlighted in Hollywood on that level. Rightfully so, they've put in the work for it, but
Absolutely.
they're not the only ones. There's so many other Latinos, and it's like sometimes I just feel like they're lazy, so they don't want to do the work.
Yeah. When you decided to, create Black Latina Movement, what was the straw that broke the camel's back where you're like, you know what? I'm just building my own table. Screw this. I mean, I'm sure you're not completely screw this, right? But you're like, I'm gonna, because you still want to be able to like
Yeah.
do the things and stuff. So you can't be like washing my hands with this. But you're like, you know what? I see your table. I'm gonna ante up my own. What was that point? What was that point for you?
Um, I think there were just like a lot of little things that were happening for me. I think it was like a culmination of these different things that were happening. And then I was like, okay, I just need to try to figure this out on my own. So I had been like I said, like just the different auditions were feeling weird. I had started to write our signature piece, which we tour with now, called Black Latina the Play. And it's a whole full out Broadway production now. But at the time, it was just like a monologue play. And I was like writing it, and then I was part of a theater company, and I got kicked out of that theater company because she knew I was writing a play, and she was upset that I like, it was a bunch of, like you said earlier, a kerfuffle. It was a big kerfuffle. There was just so many different things that were happening to me, and it almost was like whispers, right? Like God is showing you different signs, and if you don't pay attention, you'll miss the mark. And so for me, it was like, maybe I should just lean into this. I remember crying, like, and telling my boyfriend at the time, like, this is crazy. Like, why are these things happening? I'm just writing a play. I still am acting, but I'm just writing some thoughts on a page. And I put it into a festival just, for giggles. And it got accepted. And then I'm like, oh, I actually have to put this show up.
That's amazing, though. That's
Right. And then
awesome.
it goes up, and then there's all of this, like, you know how media is, all this. At the time we didn't have Instagram, it was just Facebook, but like all this communication starts coming in, all these people start emailing me, all these little tweets start coming in. I'm like, oh, people feel this way too. And to me, that's when it became more of a service to my community, because it was like, women are feeling this, like this is heavy. Because Black Latina the Play is about just it's about these three women who are navigating the space of being Black Latinas, Afro-Latinas, but not just the outside world not accepting them, but then their inside world not accepting them. And so their community, and like some of the internalized racism and colorism that we face, and those things. And so I was getting a lot of women who were in the industry, and then not in the industry, just regular women who were just saying, I've never seen myself on stage. I never forget when we went off Broadway for the first time in 2012. There was an older woman, and she's like, I'm bastante vieja. I'm 60 something years old, but I have to say, I've never seen me on stage. And I'm like, I'm always a mess, Jessica. I was crying. I
Wow.
was like, oh, cry. Like, maybe it's the theater kid in me. I was like crying, like, oh, but I
You
was
gotta,
crying.
like Joey says, you gotta keep the emotions at the top.
And it was a beautiful moment to know that, like, after 60 years, you've never seen yourself, and you see, you relate to my piece. And so like that was kind of what got the ball really rolling for me was just saying, I want to create work that our women feel good about and are like, I see me in that. Yeah.
That's amazing. So sorry if you hear something. Let me show you real quick. I don't. he's, he's, he's just snoring right next to me in the corner. I just hear him snoring and I look and I see his bottom teeth.
Knocked out. I love that.
So knocked out. And my little one is knocked out over there. Let me see if I can show you real quick. There she is. There's both of my doggies.
I love that.
And you can only see that if you're watching this on YouTube.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, it was just so funny. No, I love that. I love that, so often, and Latinas are the fastest growing entrepreneurs in the country, but I think it's because so often we don't see ourselves reflected, or we feel like we're either too much or not enough, right?
Yeah.
Like we're like, many of us tend, not everybody because everybody's different, but many of us tend to have big, bold personalities. And so I think that obviously we become what people consider the fiery Latina or whatever. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. When I get so mad, I shut down. When I get that mad, I am not the fiery Latina. Yeah. You better walk away if I stop talking.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen that in auditions. I've seen it say like a feisty Latina. I'm like, what does that mean?
Yeah. I don't know. But you're not the first person that I've heard saying be more Latina enough. In LA, we have a DJ. Her name is Liz Hernandez, and she has been on the radio. She's been like Access Hollywood, reporter, all of these things. And she was saying when she first started out Power 106 in LA that they asked her to be more Latina. And she's like, what does that even mean? What do you mean be more Latina? And they wanted her to like have a little bit of an accent and everything.
Yeah,
and I was just like, because I know that there's certain things that I say that do have an accent, right? But that's how most, I think so many of us are. You can't tell us we have to conform, we have to do this, we have to do that. But yeah, when you want us to build whatever, now that's not.
You want us to sprinkle it on. Yeah. I mean, and there's these characters, right? We have some iconic characters too, right? Like when you think about Rosie Perez or you think about Sofia Vergara, these iconic characters who have these thick accents that are regionalized, right, to their places in the world and the country. But not all of us sound like that. Not all of us look like that. And I think in their minds, Hollywood has said like all Latinas, this is what a Latina is. And so like when you come out, you need to come out with this and the ipapis and that's it. And it's like, I think it's really hard to get them out of that thought process and say, let's elevate what Latinas look like and sound like. Not all of us, and not that there's anything wrong with those characters either. They're beautiful characters.
But it was also true to them because that's correct. Like they naturally have those accents.
Correct. So not all of us, come out that way. We're not a factory setting, right? Like let's set Latina, boop, and then it's like, no, we're not a monolith. And so like that within itself, and then to add on that a lot of us have African descent and are Afro-Latino, and then some of us statewise are Black Latinos. That was like something that was unheard of and was very hard for them to kind of like wrap their brain around. Like, wait, what? Because of the fact that even when you think about Latinas, their ideas of who Latinas are not it. So it's like the complexities, it has been a challenge to kind of push the envelope and push them to see like, okay, no, but there's more, but there's more, but there's more. Yeah.
That's what I loved about Hamilton, is because it was just a story being told, but it happened to be a story being told with people across communities of color.
Yeah.
And it was so awesome to see. Let me ask you a question. How you feel? Because I feel like once people get to a certain thing, then our community is like, oh, you're such a, like the hate comes, right?
Oh yes,
like right now, everybody's hating on Jennifer Lopez. I don't hate her. I think she works her ass off and she goes for what she wants. Like that's what we should, if you want something, you need to go for it and you need to work hard for it. I've been seeing a lot of hate for lately for Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Yes, yes,
Um,
yeah,
like
yeah.
why do you think, like, and I know this happens in entertainment in general, we like build people up and then we love to
Mm-hmm.
tear them down, then we
Mm-hmm.
love to see the comeback story, but then when they get too high, oh, but then we love to tear them. It's like this. But within our community, I think it's really interesting how we're always saying, and I agree, like representation is not enough. We are
Mm-hmm.
over 20% of media consumers. We're by over 20% of movie tickets, less than what it's like 2% representation for our
Mm-hmm.
community.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so let me share what my perspective is, and I would love to hear what
Yeah.
yours is. My perspective is, even if you don't agree, like necessarily agree with it, if you want more representation, we have to support the representation that we have now so we can get more. Like I remember when Hentified came out on Netflix, people were
Mm-hmm.
mad. Well, that's not well, yeah, it's an experience very specific to Boyle Heights. But the fact that I can see Mexican Americans who are in this
Mm-hmm.
position, like I grew up in San Diego. I grew up very different than that. Was that my experience? No, but I want to see like what
Mm-hmm.
this story is. And that doesn't mean that I can't relate in any way. When In the Heights, like I've spoken to this with other people. When In the Heights came on, honestly, I had never prior to that been to Washington Heights. I have now
Mm-hmm.
multiple times. Um, but yes, as a viewer, I would have probably thought that, that was the representation. I agree that it should have been. So people I know were taking that out on Lin-Manuel Miranda. So would you rather? So my question to other people have been, would you rather the movie have not been made? Because ultimately that probably was not his decision. Because if it was his decision, he would have done that on Broadway. But
Mm-hmm.
the representation on Broadway was very different. But he has to answer to somebody if he wants to get this movie made. So how are your feelings on that? I know everybody's different, so I'd love
Yeah.
to hear your feelings on that.
It's kind of like the earlier discussion we had about saying like, oh, a lot of the actors that are Latino, they're only picking like Puerto Rican actors, but then it might be a Mexican role and then they're picking Puerto Rican actors, but then like should we be more diligent and try to get Mexican actors? Should we just be happy? I think it's kind of in that same realm for me, in the sense of like, it's never going to be a perfect situation, right? So like, but taking from it the fact that we could get all Latino, or Latino based show on Broadway, in a place that is never had something on that kind of capacity, and then to put it on, in the major movies, that's huge. I think it's kind of like celebrating our wins. They may not be perfect wins. They're not going to be perfect. We're not always going to get that. And like you said, they have their own turmoils and things that they're going on. We don't know what those meetings at the table were about, where these execs are saying, you got to do it this way. If you want it to go this way, you got to wiggle with us. You might not be able to get it the way you want it. We don't know what those deals look like. But I think for me, I'm always going to look at it from the positive way. So it's like, I'm always going to feel like, well, at the very least, we got that. Now we can build on that. Because now you can always say, when you're pitching your show, like, well, there's proof that Latinos go out and watch films or plays that are about them. So now let me interject my stuff and put some of my, my twist to it. I think we kind of like elevate these people on like these iconic platforms, but they're human beings too. So we can't expect perfection. I think you hear that a lot of times with like Tyler Perry, when people say, oh, we don't like the roles that he puts out. We don't like the shows that he puts out, but he's putting out shows in networks that we've never seen, like TBS, TNT, like now he's on Netflix and this and that. Like, that's huge. And again, I'm always about like the celebrating the wins, the in between stuff. Yeah, we can iron that out, but like, Lynn is not perfect. People are complaining about his lack of like political interjection in what's going on in Puerto Rico, and that may be true, but at the end of the day, what he has done in entertainment is undeniable for Latinos. We can't forget about that part. Same
And he
thing
did bring
with
Hamilton to Puerto
right,
Rico,
right,
specifically for Puerto Rican. And in that documentary, he was talking a lot
yeah,
about that stuff. And look,
right,
I'm the type of person, I am a news junkie. I used to work in politics. I am a news junkie, but
mm-hmm.
I am also an empath, and I have to keep myself like I cannot watch news 24/7, because
Right,
then I will be in the corner huddled up crying because
right,
I can't take what's
right,
happening right now.
right.
Um Speaking of what's happening right now, I know a lot of people from across the Latinx community
Mm-hmm.
are they're not going out as much.
Yeah,
They are, because our community is being targeted.
yeah,
From the standpoint of theater,
yeah.
is that making an impact at your shows? Have you seen that yet, or have you put anything on since it started? And if you're going to continue, how would you continue to navigate around so you can continue to bring this experience to our community?
So I was getting impacted before he got into office because there were certain things that were already being proposed. So the governor of Florida, which is DeSantis, he had already started the book ban. He already started the anti-woke, the anti-DEI programming before Trump came in. So we're talking about 2023, 24. I was starting to feel it then because I had gotten I do workshops along with the shows. So sometimes we'll couple them together, or sometimes they'll just want me to come do a workshop and I'll do a workshop. And so in 2023, the fall of 2023, I basically was like smuggled into like Florida because the money that I get from universities is funding from the government, right?
Mm.
So we had to label it differently. I'm not going to say the university. We had to label it differently. We had to whatever. I went in. I wound up not staying just because I didn't physically feel comfortable being there. Then the top of 2024, again, he's not in office yet, but a lot of these things are in the works. Another university reaches out, again in Florida, go, and it's really hostile, very hostile. Again, I didn't feel comfortable. I didn't stay. Normally I stay in some of
The
the states I go.
university or the city?
The university had like mixed issues that were going on there. So some of the students were a little weird. And then the city was a little off. So I wound up, I usually would stay like a day or two, walk around, get like chuleria here, there. No, I was like,
Mhm.
I'm out, girl. So that was that. And then what happens with our tours is normally we'll tour for Black History, Women's History, Hispanic Heritage Month, and we'll usually get those emails or those soft confirmations, and then the contracts will come in like a few months before. So 2024, usually, let's say, I would say like August, September, I would start getting interest for the shows for the top of this year for Black History and Women's History Month around that time. Also, let me bring it back. So normally in the summertime, let's say July, August, I would start getting contracts for Hispanic Heritage Month, which is September, October. And then September, October, I would get contracts for February and March, Hispanic Heritage Women's History Month. I didn't see any for Hispanic Heritage Month last year. And I was wondering, like, something is going on. I'm not sure, but this has never happened in the 17 years of
Yeah.
being operating. And so fall of last year, some of the universities start hitting me up and they were like, listen, we've been a little bit nervous with November around the corner. So we didn't do too much Latino programming. However, maybe we'll team up, because a lot of times the universities will do that. The Latino Student Union will team up with the Black Student Union or the Women's Student Union, and they'll work together and they'll collaborate on a program. So they said, let's see about us collaborating with the women's group and the Black groups for Black History, Women's History. I said, not a problem. Start getting all my soft inquiries and soft dates start getting my contracts in. Everything is set. Comes January this year, all the contracts are rescinded. All the money is gone. Everything is gone. So we have not toured in a year. The first time in 17 years of the existence of our business, I have not been in a university because they knew this was coming and they didn't want any retaliation against them, because if they use funding for Latino, Black, or women programming, they would then be in a position to never get funding again. And they need this money for the university.
Wow.
And so you're thousands, like, and it's not about the money, but it is thousands of dollars that was, you know, I normally get in my organization. And yeah, so it's like, I wouldn't even know what the temperature of the universities are. I can only imagine. It's very scary. I mean, I've been trying to keep up, and I know that some of the professors have put some of the classes online for fear that, you know, the 3-letter word that I'm not even going to say is going to come in and do whatever foolery they've been doing. But
the freezer people.
Right. So yeah, so it's impacted us tremendously. Just because we haven't been able to, you know, we do receive public funding. So I think for me now, the pivot has been like just going where I'm celebrated and trying to mobilize our communities in a way of saying like, well, we have buying power. So we also don't have to rely on, you know, university funding. We can fund our own projects and productions and show that we still have, kind of like what's going on with Target, right? Like they didn't like what was going on with Target because they pulled DEI. And so we've pulled our money from there. I think it's really important for us to now start being more smart of where we're spending our money and showing that we have that power.
Yeah. That's great. You want to know what's crazy thing about Target? They used to be my client. And so I worked for an agency, and they hired the agency, which is a multicultural agency. So they ended up being my client to find, vet, hire photographers to do all of their digital assets for all of their new and remodeled stores. So, mi gente, I'm just telling you, probably anything that you're seeing in regards to new, I was the one who hired those photographers.
Wow.
And although I hired people across the board, I absolutely positively, when I was looking at people, was making sure that I was hiring people across communities of color.
Right.
You know, and obviously, and it depended on who was applying for those jobs and everything. But, you know, I was, you know, I definitely was making sure that was happening. Because I was in a position to be able to hire and support our communities and support other communities. So when that happened, I was really sad. Me and my husband have not shopped there in months and months. And in fact, he'll call me and be like, I need to go here. Or where are we boycotting this store?
I know. I saw someone asking, I guess they tagged like a business and said, I love your products, but is there any other place you have your products? Is it only going to be in Target?
Yeah. I mean, like, I love Rizos Curl. So I'll either order I used to go to Target because they're in Target. But now I just
she's
go to
at Ulta. Yeah, she's
Ulta.
at Ulta.
Yeah, I go to Ulta. Julissa was on the podcast before a couple years ago too. So yeah. So yeah, no, I'll go to Ulta or go to the website. If I like know I'm gonna be running out, I'll go to the website. But if it's like, oh, if I'm waiting last minute, Ulta, and have an Ulta card, and Ulta's sponsored the podcast before. So
there you go.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, go where you're go to spaces where you're celebrated, where you're wanted. You have children.
Yeah.
So
I have 2 boys.
So 2 boys. Okay. So okay. I have a great question now.
Yeah.
How do you talk to them not only about, because in this media age, it's the media age of the podcasters and everything. You know, I get worried sometimes about my nephews. So when they like a particular TikTok or Instagram, I get really excited because it's usually like something that's very, you know, So how do you talk to them about not only media, but media in regards to what's happening right now, in regards to like the bro podcasters, in regards to representation? How do you approach them in regards to sharing not only what you do, because obviously they see what you do, they see how you celebrate the culture, but how do you talk to them about what's happening and why it's so important that not only the intersectionality of not only being a man, but being Latino, and how important it is to celebrate, you know, other Latinos and other women and everything to make sure they don't turn into one of those bros.
Road podcast. You know what's so interesting? I always just want to hear their take on things. So I'm always like, what are your thoughts about this? Or like, what did you think about this? Or what did you feel? And what's so interesting is like, because of who I am and they've watched me do this for so many years, it's so embedded that now they just speak like that. So a lot of times they'll say, you know, I know I'm a feminist. Like I know that they'll say that. Or, you know, my little one, he's gonna be 15. He'll say like, I don't have a problem with hanging out with girls. Like guys are so, you know, in our community now, like guys are so triggered. Like everything is like, oh, you're gay or you're this or you're that. He's like, it's just so bad the way that we've put ourselves in boxes. And he's like, so if a guy, he's like, and not that there's anything wrong with gays, but he's like, but if I'm a boy and I like hanging out with girls, that makes me gay. He's like, honestly, that makes me smart because now I know what they want. Right. So he kind of gets
Smart boy
right,
for
right.
sure.
So he gets it in that sense. And I think it's important. I think it's important for us to kind of have those conversations with the younger men, right? And saying like, well, what are you feeling or what are your thoughts? There's a lot of these conversations in these bro podcasts about like men not being seen and women being too forward and being too assertive and being feminist. And, you know, I think it's important to understand why we're this way. Like, why has the community of women changed and why are we feeling this way? And I think they've never had an intellectual conversation with a woman, because if you did, you would understand the history and why women now feel so empowered and want to be at a place that we want to sit at the table too. The wage gap is way too vast, right? Like I think these conversations are not had enough. And so these men are on these podcasts just like spewing all this like toxic information that's not really real information, and they don't have enough people around them to kind of like give them the right ideas, or like not even the right ideas, just the right information. And so with my kids, I try to have them around all types of groups of people in all walks of life, just so they can get understanding behind why these are these ways. I don't want to, you know, choke them with the information and make them feel like they're bombarded. I want them to understand it and fully embrace it and make it their own, where they're like, I get why this is this way. Like we do have a certain level of power that women don't have, and we need to spread the wealth. So it's always great, like even just hearing what they have to say and their thoughts on things, or them catching themselves. Like my oldest will say like, am I being too machismo with my girlfriend? Because, and I'm like, if you gotta ask, then you know.
Yes.
So it's like, but also helping them understand and practice self-awareness, because I don't think we do that enough. And so I just it's a fun space to be in as they get older, to kind of like help mold their ideas and for them to understand who they are.
Yeah. No, I love that. Like I said, I was in Oregon and for my nephew, and my sister has 4 boys,
Okay.
right? But we've always been very like, one time one of my nephews was not treating a woman, you know, a girl, right? He got reamed from all of us because I was
Love
like,
it.
yeah, I was just like, my sister's like, this is not what you do. This is not who you are. Like, I don't, and so I'm asking him like, what happened? And he's telling me, and I'm like, you know, that's not, and I'm like, you know, that's not okay. What if
Mm-hmm.
somebody was talking to me or your tia or your mom that way? Is that
Yeah.
what you want to see? Is that what you want to reflect? Is that the family you came from? You came from a family that it was all you know, it's all girls and they're all boys, right? But it's me and my
Mm-hmm.
sisters. And I said, you came from a family who we stand up for each other and
Yeah.
we're not here to berate each other. And the fact that I'm like, I say his name and I'm like, that makes me really disappointed in you because I know you're, and that, disappointed to a kid is worse than mad,
I know,
right?
because it's like, oh my God, I
I'm
feel
like,
this
you've
way about.
disappointed all of us
Yeah.
because we know you're better than that. And the fact that you listened to your friends, I'm like, I'm
Right.
sorry. And then I got into like, are your friends putting the roof over your head? No.
Yeah.
Your mom's the
Yeah.
one who took care of you. Your mom, da 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 da. Your grandma and grandpa do this. We do this. Blah 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 blah. So why are you listening to your friends?
Yeah. And then
And
where are the friends getting it from, right? Like, are they
yeah.
getting it from their parents, or like, are they just inundated with all this toxic information that's online? Because there's a lot of different, there's too many influences now that are like molding our kids and their thoughts. And it's
So
just like, where are you
speaking
getting
of
this from?
that, yeah, that goes into mental health
Yeah.
and everything. So what type of responsibility do you think that media holds when it comes to those types of things? I mean, it's kind of just a natural going from the bro bot podcast, right? Like there's
Yeah.
things happening and people that are listening to that. I always so what is your take? That doesn't mean we're not doctors. We can't say, but I that's why I asked for your take on what you think is what's happening within the media right now.
It's hard because I feel like, especially from like celebrities, um they're not they're role models, but they're not role models, right? So it's like a lot of the times, even for young girls and young Latinas, they see like the bodies and the images, and it's like, it's not these actresses and these singers' responsibility to be mindful that like they're posting a picture in a bikini and it's like, oh, gym goals, and it's like, but you've had 17 surgeries, right? When a young girl sees this at 12 years old, she's thinking this is the epitome of beauty. It's hard for me as a mom to put it all on the celebrity and say, you should know better. You're a role model. Like, they're looking up to you, because these people are normal people and they're not God, and they're living their lives however they choose to. For me, there's more responsibility at home to tell our young kids, like, this is just an image. This is not real. These things are just these people's, lives. I think a lot of times, yes, they
They have
should have more.
trainers, they have chefs. So yes, some people
Right,
so obviously like the natural part of your body is, you know what I mean? Like
right.
you see pictures of Salma Hayek and Sofia Vergara, they've looked like that since they hit puberty. Damn
Yes,
it. Right?
yes,
But then
yes.
we all think that's exactly what we have to look
Right,
like.
right, right. And it's hard because, should they be more socially responsible? Yes, but I feel like it's a mixture of of their responsibility, but also too, like, it is just a job for them versus like us as parents, what we should be saying to our kids, and then kids knowing the reality versus fake. And so, there's a lot of mental health issues. Like, I do a podcast, I mean, not a podcast, I do a workshop on beauty. And one of the statistics that I always pull up is that NPR pulled up a statistic that said like 57% of young girls now have body dysmorphia, because they're feeling like they don't look the way that social media is now perpetrating out there. And so like the UK now, they have a great they passed a law that now on billboards or even like certain posts, it has to say this image has been manipulated, just because kids are really believing some of this information. And so from imagery to even what we're watching, like what you were saying, like watching the news, it's like trauma porn, right? Like we're scrolling and it's like a dead body, a raid, somebody got killed by a cop, this, that. It's like every single post, while it is beautiful in the sense of we're seeing it in ways and it's not quiet anymore, right? Like you hear these stories of like the 40s and the 50s where people were being killed or this or that, and no one had a voice because they were hiding the stories. So it's beautiful now in a weird way. I use beautiful like, but it's great that now there's attention to these things where like we're able to say the person's name, know what happened, put, the news to it. But it becomes overwhelming for you because you're starting to feel that in your system where like you're home and you're feeling anxiety. Like, why am I feeling so overwhelmed? Well, I just sat down for an hour going through the rabbit hole of like all the bad things that are happening in the community. And while I want to be informed, it's physically taking a toll on me. And I think it's important for us to kind of say, let's set some time aside to pray, to meditate, to decompress, to just put it aside. We're not saying we're turning a blind eye, and we're not saying that we don't want to hear about it, but we're saying like we also need a moment to not be so bombarded with it because it is so heavy.
I mean, it is. It's very heavy. It's very like, it just, you really have to put, it feels like right now, you really have to put effort into avoiding it because otherwise
Yeah.
you can't avoid it because it's
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah.
It's absolutely, it's right now, or what has been the biggest struggle? Because obviously we always talk about all of these amazing, beautiful things, but when has there been a time when you were just like ready to pull your eyebrows and eyelashes off and just be like, I can't do this anymore?
I know. Every day of the week. No, I think it, there's cycles to it. I mean, anything that you're doing that doesn't have like, I don't have like a big organization backing me. I don't have a parent company, it's not in that sense. So it is very grassroots. I think just staying the course is important. And I think sometimes that sounds very cliche, but like if I let all the little, things that are going on and the porqueria that's all over the place affect me, it'll throw me off my track of what I'm doing. And I think taking time for yourself, like, it's so important, like your self-care, because you're only going to be as good as you can be if you are fully where you need to be. And there's been times, in entrepreneurship, and this, it's you against you, right? It's not no one else. It's just really you against what you've done or your year over year. When you reflect on the year before, it's like, what are your goals? And I think a lot of times taking breaks is really good. Like people will say like, no, I got to stay active. I got to stay in it but sometimes even if it's a 2-week break, or sometimes if you take a season off, a quarter off, I think it's really important. I think we're so committed to hustle culture that it's like, I sleep when I'm dead. And it's like, girl, I think that's important because as a writer, as a creative, I'm more creative when I'm in a space of comfort. If I'm in fight or flight mode, if I'm in, that mode, I'm not going to be able to give what I could give to myself and my community.
Yeah. Over the last year, I really truly discovered, because so this last season, season 5, we're now in season 6, but season 5 was the first time I went to a season because I was putting out like 50 episodes a year. Even if they were rewind episodes or whatever, I was still doing. And I was like, why am I doing this? I would be frantic. I would be this and that. And now I'm like, so I finally went to a seasonal format. And like, we're recording this off season, right? So for the first time, I've kind of taken a couple weeks off of social media. I mean, I
Good
still
for
scroll, but I
you.
haven't really been posting very much. It's just like if I feel it, right? And it was the real first time that I have done that where I didn't feel like every day I had to post something. Every day I had to post something.
Good for
Or maybe I
you.
just post something really silly on TikTok or whatever, but it's not like, oh, I have to think of this or what I'm going to do or this or that. And it's been amazing.
Good for you. Good
And
for
I'm
you.
so like,
That's
yeah. So,
incredible.
and it's been so amazing. And that's why I think I went to seasons, because I was finding, first of all, people listen to podcasts. They tend to, it tends to be part of their routine. I'm going to listen to
Yeah.
it when I'm driving. I'm going to listen to it
Yeah.
here. I'm going to listen to it there. And during the summer, people get off their routine. So
Yeah.
I've definitely seen a difference. And also, oddly enough, December is still really good. January takes a nosedive. And
Really?
yes. So
Wow.
I've decided, you know what? I'm going to take January off. It's right after the holiday. So it's kind of my holiday break. And then I start again February through June. So even season 5 still had 37 episodes.
Good for you. I hear that.
I was so proud of myself.
From going from 3 episodes to 37 is insane.
Yeah. So I was going from, I was went from 50. So I didn't, thank goodness, right? I could not keep up 50 episodes. I did that for 4 years. 50 episodes a year. I know. And now I'm like, yes, I was crazy. And now I'm like, no. Um, I want to make sure that, so what's next for Black Latina Movement? Like, are you guys like, are you guys prepping for something? What's next for you and for your company?
So we have an event called Talks and Tequila where we get together and we call them like decompress and address sessions. And I curate the conversation. We get together, we have food, we drink, and we talk about anything you want to talk about. So I curate about 10 to 15 questions, but then from there we kind of go off and we could talk about corporate America, the issues there, to our families, to our children, to our jobs. And it's just a safe space for us to get together and not feel like we're being judged or like we have to be a certain kind of way. And so it's a safe space for women of color. And we've been doing it since 2021. So we're going to Chicago September 20th. We'll be in the DMV area October 18th, and we'll be in Orlando November 8th. And it's great. Like I love it because it's not like touring in the sense of like we're touring with the show. We're still touring, but it's more of like an informal meetup. We get to laugh and joke and drink and have a good time. If you don't drink, it's fine. We have mocktails as well. But I curate it front to back as a Black Latino experience. So the vendors are either going to be Latino or they're going to be Black. The photographers, everything that's involved is also our experience. So it's important for me because I also want to highlight our community, not just us, but like the people a part of that as well. The food and the vendors and the liquor and the this and the that. So we have that. We are going out with Black Latina to play in January 2026 in Chicago at the Urban Stages Theater, which is great. It's a Latino theater company. So it'll be there. So it'll be great. Like, so we're in rehearsals for that since we're a little rusty. We've been out of it for a year. So this is the first time in 17 years that we've actually had a break. So it's kind of like a gift and a curse because now we're like, all right, we don't want to take this break, but it's nice because it allows us to like revamp the show. So Chicago will be seeing a brand new show that's never been seen before in 15 something years. There's blessings behind everything, so you have to really move in life like that. Like if we didn't have the year off, it wouldn't have given me time to be like, let me spruce up the show. And in sprucing up the show, I actually think it's the best version of the show. So listen, everything happens for a reason. So we'll be there. So folks can catch up to see what we're doing on Instagram and on the website, and they'll be able to catch up to all the different events we have coming up.
Yay, that's so exciting. You know what? We're going to have to see if we can do a collaboration next time I go to New York.
Yes, 100%. 100%.
I've gone every year for the last few years and I have not scheduled my time this year. So I need to figure it out.
Yeah, let me know. Let me know.
That would be awesome if we could do something together. I could, obviously every time we do anything with wine, we bring the Latina wine brands with us and everything. So that would be awesome. I can't believe like so much like that. It's been such a wonderful conversation. Is there anything else that maybe I haven't touched on that you want to share? I hand you over the floor.
No, this has been great. I think it's a great conversation. Great conversation. I think you hit all the parts and the nuances and asked all the great questions. Yeah, I loved it.
I am so, Crystal, thank you so much for coming on, from sharing not only your story, but the story of the Black Latina movement and what you guys are going to be doing. Mi gente, make sure to follow Black Latina Movement. You can go to blacktinamovement.com, and on Instagram, it's Black Latina Movement. And make sure to follow. If you're in Chicago, make sure to go to the show, go to the workshops. Like, it's more important than ever that we support one another. Like, truly, I am so happy. This has been such a great conversation. So thank you, Crystal.
Thank you so much for having me.
Until next time, mi gente.
Hola, mi gente. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Wine and Chisme Podcast. If you would like to hear more wine and more chisme, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Saludos.